Este año celebramos la relación entre juego y democracia y pensando un poco cómo los videojuegos pueden impulsar procesos democráticos o cómo se relacionan, ¿no?, con el espacio democrático en general, problemas, oportunidades, desafíos.
El videojuego cada vez más y más se va consagrando como este nuevo medio artístico y es por ello que es muy importante que podamos dar herramientas accesibles, gratuitas, de software libre a todas y todos aquellos que quieran aprenderlas y que puedan así disfrutar del medio de una manera abierta y popular, sin interferencias del capital. Por ejemplo, Twine es una herramienta para hacer videojuegos narrativos de manera muy sencilla, muy accesible para todo el mundo, que no requiere tener recursos muy caros, sino que simplemente abriendo el navegador puedes empezar a crear tus propias obras videolúdicas y me parece maravilloso.
La desconferencia al final es un formato en el que la gente puede proponer temas que normalmente cuando se hacen otro tipo de charlas o eventos siempre surgen a la luz temas que pueden parecer más interesantes, pero en este tipo de desconferencias es la gente la que propone las ideas y a veces estos temas que son más delicados, diferentes, no surgen hasta que la gente empieza a pensar, a debatir y preguntarse entre unos y otros qué es realmente lo que está pasando día a día y de qué queremos hablar.
Y continúa también en esta plataforma, en el Decidim de Derechos Juego Digital, donde podemos seguir abriendo debates, comentando, proponiendo cosas y bueno, creciendo, porque es un espacio horizontal, así que invitados e invitadas a participar y a hacer lo vuestro.
Hi, everybody. This is Luca. My name is Luca. I'm a co-director of Arts Games, and I'm happy to have you here during the second meeting of the sixth Digital Right to Play meeting. So, as you maybe know, these meetings we do each year are about the relationship between video games and digital rights. Usually, the debate around digital rights is exclude video games. Video games are not part of this debate, and since the beginning of this project, we thought that it was very, very important to bring all the knowledge, all the practices that are happening inside the video games space to the community of digital rights, because video games are one of the main products today about digital culture. A lot of people consume it, and it's a space of socialization, a space of creation, a space where a very important part of us is completely immersed in this virtual world. So it's very important to ask what happened with our digital rights when we play. If there is any way to think, how to think about digital rights related to video games. So this year, to answer to this question, we decided to invite four experts from different sectors, from the private sector, developer, creator, academia, and also from consulting sector, people specialized to digital rights and video games, such as Dario Lopez. He was the invited guest who opened the first meeting of this year. You can check online his presentation if you miss it 2 weeks ago. And today we have another invited guest. I'm very happy to have you here. Please meet with Florent Maurin. Hi, Florent.
Hi there. I'm very happy to be with you today. Yeah.
Thank you to receive my invitation. So I will briefly present you, and then I will start a conversation about 1 hour when we're gonna talk about preservation.
Sure.
This year we invite different guests, our guests, to talk about different issues. Florent proposed us to talk about preservation, and if you go to our main website of the project, decidim.derechosdigitales, you will find the different pieces of digital objects, as we call it, that each guest prepared for us. In the case of Florent, he prepared a beautiful video talking about digital preservation. So just to go start with the conversation, I will start presenting you. You are graduated in the School of Journalism from Lille, 2002. You began your career as journalist before founding the Pixel Hunt Studio. That is a very well-known French studio of video games, maybe best known for productions such as Bury Me My Love.
Yes.
That is an interactive text-based fiction. Inua, Story in Ice and Time, historical puzzle adventure, and The Wreck, drama in the form of 3D visual novel. So the Pixel Hunt also developed commissioned games for cultural institutions and museums. Florent is a studio creative director and lead game designer, and a very beautiful person. We met 1 year ago in Malaga, I think, and was amazing to hear him and talk to him. So I hope you will enjoy this conversation today. So let's start. In your video, in your work, you describe a beautiful moment playing retro games with your daughters, right?
Yes.
So why this intergenerational transmission of gaming is important to you. Moreover, your daughters, that I can imagine you want just to share with them your background.
Well, the thing is that it's not retro gaming for me, you know. That's the weird things about video game, is that it's the games I've grown up with. More specifically, I was referring to the Nintendo Entertainment System that I think I forced my parents to buy to me when I was like 10 or 11 maybe. So in 1991, a very long time ago. But to me, it's just the video games I first met and I grew up with. So even though I'm very old now, it was 30 years ago, it just feels like a part of my culture. And when we visited my mother's house and I thought about the console that was in the attic, I did this idea that we would open the box and install the console and share it with my kids. They know I make games for a living. They know I play a lot of video games. They also play video games, but we had never had the opportunity to discuss what it meant to me and what maybe it will mean to them in the future. Those emotions that you feel when you encounter the first video games that really stick with you because you love them. In my case, it was Super Mario Bros., the very first Super Mario game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So the fact that we were able to play it together was to me similar to just sharing a beautiful place that I really love with my daughters, or handing them a book that changed my perception of life and telling them to read it, and then we can discuss it. It was that kind of shared moment that I didn't even think about that much. I just, because I love them and they are very important to me, I just wanted to connect with them and to share that very important part of my life with them, and also to see how they would react and how it would make them feel and what questions would happen and everything you want to see happen when you share a bit of your culture with someone you love, basically.
Yeah, definitely, I understand. It's something that we always do with other media, such as cinema, movies, and series or books. But somehow with video games, video games is more fragile
Yes.
to comparing with other media, right? It's like very easy to get lost, to disappear, to so what is the risk you have with video games of disappearance?
Well, there are several risks. First is based on the technology, because video games are technical objects. And for instance, if I hadn't decided to keep my console in a box in the attic and fairly precociously, it would be very hard for me today to find Super Mario Bros. In its original condition and in the way I experienced it. Because, of course, there's the video game itself, the software, but it's also the hardware. It's also the squared gamepads and the feeling you have holding those very old gamepads, and it hurts your fingers a little bit. And this is part of the experience. And this experience cannot happen without the full hardware, software, and all the conditions. So you could agree that, yes, it's the same with the cinema, for instance. If you tell someone about a movie that you've seen a very long time ago, maybe what you remember kindly is also the setting and the movie theater from back then when you were still allowed to smoke in movie theaters, for instance, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's less important than for video games, where we are really at the crossroads between technology and culture and art, the expression of art through software. So this makes it twice as complicated as other pieces of media to replicate.
Yeah, definitely. There is a huge debate in the community regarding preservation. If we need to preserve the same original playing settings as it was in order to preserve the media, or we can use emulation
Yes.
and other kind of software strategies that let us being able to play even after long time with older games. So personally, I think that not always the device and the display setting is so important in order to share the moments, share the cultures, share the content.
I agree.
Still, I believe that there are places that we need that can conserve and conserve the original setting, but not anywhere. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I have a very tiny anecdote that I think is telling. One of my favorite games of all time is called Grim Fandango. It's made by Tim Schafer and his team at the time. I love this game, and you can emulate it. You don't have to play it on a PC as old as the PCs that were in service when the game first was released. I think it was released in the early 2000s or something like that. But there's a puzzle at one point in the game. And if you play on a modern PC, you can't win the puzzle because it's time-based. And the microprocessors today are too fast. So the scenery is going too fast and you can't achieve the puzzle anymore. So it's a very small detail, but it's just to say that even sometimes the tiniest details can make the game outdated and outplayable. But also I agree with you, it's not always necessary to have the device and to smell the plastic and to let's not be too
to look at the yellow plastic.
Yes.
But I think projects such as archive.org are amazing because it's like a huge gaming library that let us play with our sibling and in other generation the games we have been playing when we were very, very, very young. So for me, it's kind of important to defend this kind of project. Maybe they are not the perfect setting of preservation, but they still comply with a very great mission, I think.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
So regarding that, this mission, these public missions, you in your video you refer to I don't know how to say depósito legal, something like that. Depósito legal en español.
Yes.
And how do you say that?
So you're referring to the mission of the CNC.
Yes.
Dépôt légal.
Can you explain that, please?
Yes. So the legal deposit is something that I think is really cool. Is when you release a game in France, even if you're not French, but if you release or sell a game in France, you are supposed to get in touch with the French National Library and to provide them with a build of the game and also provide them with the build of the softwares that are needed to play the game. For instance, if your game is in Flash, you also have to provide a way to play the Flash file and not just the Flash file in itself.
Okay. Right now, I don't know if there are many Flash games anymore, but still,
yes,
nice to think about it.
What I did once upon a time, I sent them a Flash game, and I also sent them a version of the internet browser that was able to play the Flash game, which would require some work to make it happen, because nowadays it's not compatible with the new operating systems anymore. But at least you have the basis to be able to play the game if you really want to. If you are an academic in 50 years and you really want to play that game because for some reason it's important to your research, then you are able to. And I think it's absolutely amazing that the French government decided to include video games in that preservation. Because of course, dépôt légal is not only about video games. It's the same with books. It was originally created for books. So if you publish a book, you have to send a copy to the French National Library. But it also works for TV shows. It also works for movies. It works for all kinds of arts and expressions. I think it works for comic books too. And it's just great that to know that there's a physical place in Paris, and also cloud-based, of course, for video games, where they stockpile all the creations, not all of them, because sadly, lots of studios don't abide by this legal obligation. But it's just like philosophically, I think it's great that you never know what will happen with the thing you just produced. Maybe it will become the cornerstone of a generation, a cult for a lot of people. So we are going to keep it. And you never know. If someone at least want to play it in a very long time, it might still be possible. At least there's this possibility. I think it's just like philosophically great.
Yeah. There is a similar legal dispositive here in Spain, where a publisher has the legal obligation to deposit actually digital files. It does not. It is referring just about the game, the final version of the game, not about the tools that you need in order to run the game. So in the case of Flash game or technology, we miss the way to run it, but still it's very important.
You don't have to do. You don't have to include the software in France either. But also, I've learned that they, in the service, in the National Library, they also work on emulating and preserving the ability to play the game. So yeah, it's just great.
That's nice, because here in Spain, what they are doing right now is just an Excel file with all the legal deposito legal, and that's it for the moment. But we hope to use it as open data and make something more useful than that. I remember that's very, very important. I myself, I am a game studies scholar. So I remember when I was studying the video games in Colombia, I remember the very first video game in Colombia, produced in Colombia, was a Flash game about politics propaganda. And it's right now you cannot play anymore. So
Yes.
it's awful. It's really, really awful, because we are losing a lot of interesting material, not just because you want to play, but in order to understand better the cultural background and moment of culture of a place. And what happened with the in this case with online gaming? How they do in France?
It's very limited, because there's a whole part of the experience that you absolutely cannot save on a hard drive and just send to the BNF. The whole community thing, the fact that you need more players than just yourself to be able to play the game. So legally, it's exactly the same thing you have to do than any other game. You have to sell a copy of the code of the game, so that one can be able to reinstall it at some point. But of course, the vast majority of those online games, they use servers. And if the servers are shut down, the fact that you have the software on your computer is next to useless. Sometimes you can play locally. Sometimes you can host a server locally, and you can just explore the empty server, which gives liminal vibes, because there's nobody here anymore in a place that was obviously designed to welcome a lot of people. But yeah, the experience of the online gaming is lost. And to be honest, personally, I don't think that it's necessarily a problem, because obviously you cannot save that in the typical play experience sense. Maybe you can save that through the production of the community, because the community makes machinimas. They make small clips, small videos, moments of the online experience, and moments shared with friends, memes, jokes, and those things can survive. So if you want to share that with someone else a long time later, you can still at least have saved those clips and those moments in your hard drive and show that instead of the actual thing. So it's absolutely not the same thing, but at least it's not completely lost forever, I would say.
Yeah. I think. Are you familiar with the campaign "Stop Killing Games"?
Yes,
Right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Just in order to tell our audience, it's a European campaign. You can sign right now, if you're an European citizen, in order to fight the obsolescence of this online game. Basically, what they are saying, you can find more information by navigating Stop Killing Games. Basically, what they are saying is that when you buy a online game, you have any expired date of the game, so you should have the right to play it forever or whenever you want. And it's not like that, because if, as you know, if the game is not doing well, they shut up the servers and you cannot play anymore. But maybe an option could be give to the players the possibility to create their own servers, local
Yes.
servers or independent servers. In that way, you can help to make to flourish a different kind of playing or community, and make the game useful, or other than the company. That could be an option.
I agree, and also first I had my doubts about the technicalities of being able to force game companies to do that, but then there has been a lot of progress when it comes to loot boxes, for instance. Loot boxes have been running wild for a long time. So if people in the audience don't know what loot boxes are, they are those kind of bonuses that you can win, and then you open them, and it's like playing on the casino, because you can have either a very cool thing that is worth a lot of in-game money, for instance, a specific weapon or a specific set of armor or anything, or you can get something that's completely shitty and you just throw away. And you can buy those loot boxes, so as if you were buying lottery tickets with real money. And this is, of course, problematic because it's designed to attract a young audience, and there had been lots of cases where people spent way more than they should have, and way more than they knew they were, on buying loot boxes. And then first some countries in Europe, and then the European Union, decided to regulate that, and to say that this was akin to gambling, and it should be regulated. It couldn't be just like video game studios doing whatever they wanted. So I guess we can imagine a world where, similarly, the consumer's digital rights would state that if you make a game that is multiplayer and internet based and servers based, if you decide to discontinue the servers at some point, you are legally obliged to provide open source tools to allow for people to host their own servers. This could be possible, and at least do not try to actively stop them, because there are game companies that sue independent people because they hacked their way into hosting private servers. And so the company discontinues the commercial servers, and then they sue the people, the players who really want to keep playing. This should not be acceptable. So yeah. I think that could be a legal frame for players to be able to continue playing online.
Well, this is exactly one of the core idea and core goals of these meetings. Understand that we as community and civic society, we can push forward the thinking around video games and rights. We can make good, positive lobbying with institutions to drive the change to our field, to try to have a word, have a voice in the conversation, because usually when we come to video games, institutions and enterprises, companies, they speak together. Sometimes workers. Now we see the flourishing of the first union-based workers, but still workers are a hidden figure in this conversation. And then finally, sometimes there is the civic society. So the main goal is actually to have a voice, to create a conversation, to create a knowledge base about all these topics that can help the civic society and who is doing the law right now in Europe and in our country to have data and more information about this stuff. And as you say, the example of that you bring is perfect, because after many years, actually now we have different legislation nationally around loot boxes, so it's possible. And what this campaign Stop Killing Games is trying to do is to make a common European ground to have a new legislation about this. So if you are interested, I invite you to check it out. And I think somehow this is related with the statue of video games, because
Of course.
at the end it's like, okay, video games is just entertainment, video games is just a product, but maybe it's something more. I mean, you did a beautiful game that is one of them is Bury Me My Love, that I really loved and use a lot in my classes and my work. And I think it's something more than entertain and product. It's art, kind of. It's a kind of art. So why video games creator have a problem to identify themselves with this identity of artists? They are always art, engineering creator, general creator, but never artists. Why? What happened there?
Well, I wish I knew for sure, but I have a few theories. My first theory would be that, as you mentioned, video games are at the crossroad between technology and jobs that would more easily be associated with art. And developers, they might not, like people who write code, might not have this culture of being able to say, yes, my code is a technical tool. It is designed to achieve a specific set of objectives, but it is also, in a way, an expression of myself, my sensitivity, my life before I happened to write it, my experiences, and in a way, it's art. I have had conversations with developers who were very, very passionate about coding, and even them, when I told them, but you are doing art in a way, you are expressing yourself, you are putting a lot of yourself and even your soul in what you want your software to be, even them, because they come from a technical background, because they're used to solving problems and being like very, very square, they don't fit into the art model of someone who's a little bit more about to open up and let the feelings do the talking. So maybe there's a little bit of that. But also I think that in France, at least, it was the recognition of video games as art was actively worked against by the very companies that make video games. And this is really weird, but it has an explanation. In France, it's because we have very positive and protecting laws about artists and artists' rights on their creations. People who write movies, people who write books, people who make audio documentaries or audio drama, they are actually entitled to fairly good protection. They can have, like by law, they can have a revenue share on the things that they produce. They can have a say on what is going to be made of their creation of the mind, and they are protected as artists. And I guess I'm not exactly sure how it came to be, but I guess that's because of unionization, of intellectuals who defended the fact that we need to protect the artists because art matters and is important. and also it's the French cultural exception. And when video games started to become a big thing, a huge thing, and the people created the companies, some of them at least, they were very interested in making a lot of money and running a very profitable business. They saw the fact that acknowledging the fact that at least the people who do the graphics in the game and do the writing in the game, they do the same work than the ones who do the graphics in the comic books and the writing in novels. So they should be protected by the same laws. They saw that as something very negative because they would have to share the profits generated by the games with the artists that actually made the game, the workers that were also artists that actually made the game. So to counter that, they came up with this concept of collective work, which means like, yeah, but video games are a little bit different. So the laws that protect artists in other arts, they should not apply to video games because you need a lot of people to make games, a lot of different jobs, a lot of different people, and some are artists and some are not artists. So let's do the thing a little bit differently than we do it when we make movies or when we write books. And so I think that this is also part of the reason why video games are not considered art, even by the very people that work in video games. And I had this conversation once that stuck with me, that with people who were working at Ubisoft, and I told them, but you are artists and you should maybe like say so and claim it. And they said, oh no, artists, they are selfish, they are self-absorbed. And I worked with the creative director once who said he was an artist, and what he was in fact was an asshole. He was abusive. We had to do as he wanted because he had the creative vision and he was the artist. And so I don't want to be an artist, and I don't want to work with artists anymore. I want to stay away from artists. And this is all blurry and messed up, and you deny the very artful nature of what you are doing because you had bad professional experiences. And this is like everything needs to be rethought and maybe like reframed law-wise, because I think that if we really want people to take video games seriously and protect them and preserve them, then the first step is to be clear about what we are doing. And to me, we are doing art, and we should be proud of it and be very clear about the fact that we are doing art.
I have a lot to say about that. I mean, very, very interesting. I think you touch a great point. But I want to know how do you try to do this on yourself? I mean, in your job, in your work, in your when you work with your creation. I mean, that are very arty for me. How do you think about preservation? Do you think about how they gonna be played in 10 years, in 20 years, or gonna be seen? There is some timeline that guides you when you time scale when you design your project. How do you do?
Well, no, not exactly. Our first, I'm just going to take the blind down because I'm getting blinded by the sun. Yeah. Our first game, as you mentioned, was Bury My Love, and it was first and foremost a mobile game. And mobile is probably the worst platforms when it comes to games preservation because of planned obsolescence of mobile phones. It's very easy for your game to be delisted on those platforms. And so I didn't think about that enough. But now I'm paying the price in a way because we work a lot on a game that's almost 10 years old now. It was released in 2017. We work a lot on updating the APIs and all the technicalities that are needed for the game to still be available on modern mobile phones. So it's an investment. It's an ongoing investment. We are lucky enough that the game did pretty well, so we still have some money to be able to just pay for the regular updates. But I would say that at least once a year, we have to re-update and re-upload the game, either on iOS or on Android, because they have new things they ask of us. And if you don't abide by the rules, they just take the game out of the shop. And as it's a monopoly, once it's out of the shop, you can't install the game on phones anymore. So yeah, it's an ongoing process if you want the game to still remain available to the audience.
Yeah. The matter of the distribution, the monopoly of distribution is awful. Maybe something is changing, seems.
Hopefully, yeah. I don't know what to expect. I guess you are referring to the Epic Game Store that want to have their own mobile store.
They already have, and it is working actually, even in iPhone. I wrote a journalistic piece about how was really important this judgment 4 years ago, and now we have a huge transformation of the market, and I hope that the market will opening more and more, because it's what we need. There is a monolithic distribution model brought by Google and Apple, and we really need more channel of distribution, because it's the exact contrary of what internet promised us 20 years ago.
Yes.
Don't have any intermediary, third person in the middle, and things like that. So
I agree, but also I'm not convinced that an actual solution will come from private companies. To be honest, they are for the most part profit driven, which I can to an extent understand. Like, I mean, it's how the world works nowadays. But as long as they will be profit driven, it will never be really profitable and interesting to pay for players to be able to play the same game for 20, 30, 40 years, because you want to sell them new games. You want to sell them new consoles. You want the market to move forward. You want novelty to keep happening so that you can still make a profit. You don't want things to last for too long when you're a private company.
We all know Nintendo pretty well, what they are doing. One of our main proposals here in Spain is to create a very first, let's say, public publishers. That would be a great option in Europe. I mean, we spend a lot in giving money directly to companies that then sell the games through commercial platform like Steam and so on. But all this money could sell also to make a profitable public distribution channel. That's what we need now in Europe, I think.
I absolutely agree, and we are in France. We are lucky enough to have Arte. So Arte originally was the French-German TV channel, and since 11 years now, they have been co-producing and then publishing games. And I've made 3 games with them, so I would be like, I'm not exactly objective, of course. I mean, I'm biased, sure, but they are amazing partners to work with, because they would sign games that nobody else would sign. Of course, they worked with me on Bury My Love. I tried to knock on other publishers' doors, and of course, nobody was interested. Too political, too sensitive. Yeah, but what about the people who are going to say this and that about migrants, and they are going to be mad at us? And Arte didn't have those considerations. They didn't even really care if the game would flop. What they looked at is what are video games nowadays, and is your proposal bringing something very new and interesting to the table? And luckily for me, in 3 different instances, The answer was yes. But of course, I agree with you. They are a publisher and a developer and a co-producer, but they still depend on distributors that are private. So maybe the logical next step would be for them to try to make a union with other countries in Europe and have a distribution platform. And if you go even further, maybe also hardware, because even if you have a distribution platform, but you're still dependent on Apple or Sony for the PlayStations, or it's a little bit different on PC because there are lots of different PC manufacturers. But you can, if once you take video games seriously, then a lot of things become possible.
Yeah, seems that in Europe they slowly they are beginning to have a good conversation about what we can do to improve the sector, and in a really serious way. The example you share with us are one of the many reasons, I think, why France is the most powerful country in this sector, where they sell more video game, consume video game, more video game, produce more video game. And I think also because you have a strategic, a complex strategy that look at different places in society, not just one kind of consumer, but you take things seriously. Regarding your work now, you said you create a lot, like 3 different mobile games. So if you think about the museum of tomorrow, a place where preserve video games for the next generation, how do you imagine this museum, a museum that can preserve even your work? How it would work for you?
Well, it's a very interesting question, one that I never asked myself before you asked me, actually. So, because I've seen a few exhibition around video games, and some of them were really great and I really enjoyed, but more often than not, I always feel a little bit awkward actually playing a game in a museum setting, because some of my favorite games, they last for hours and hours. So playing like 20 minutes of it in a museum is always complicated, because it doesn't convey the heart of the experience. So I would say that if I had to imagine a museum that would try to do that, probably I would use my experience with my daughters and my Nintendo system as a basis. I would love for a museum to be able to not only present a game to me, but also present to me the avatar of someone, maybe the creator, maybe someone who's famous for something else, but happens to have a particular relationship with that video game. Maybe someone who's just an expert and an academic who has pinpointed the very specific of one game, and to be able to play the game while interacting with that avatar and being able to hear them explain to me why that game in particular is special and what it means to them, even with their subjectivity, even with their intimacy, and B, to be able to ask questions dynamically about a said video game and why it works this way and that way, and why it's so hard, for instance, which is one of the first things my daughters asked me when they played Mario. It's a very hard game, and games nowadays are way more accessible than that one. So one of the first questions they had was that, why is it so hard? And there are lots of ways to answer that question, and I think it tells a lot about what video games are, that specific question.
Yeah,
So
I'm totally agree with you. Just a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a piece called. I work a lot on museum exhibition, and I wrote a piece about exhibiting video game is not playing. I mean, in order to put a video game exhibit a video game, you don't need to play it in order to understand well in the context of a museum. So it's very, very important what is the paratext, what is all the collective cultural importance of the game regarding many different things that you can work in the exhibition, not just the playing itself, but why the playing, why the game is so important. The example of your daughter is perfect. I will use it. Thank you. Yeah, just we are running out of time. Just a couple of more questions before to end. I would like to know. I saw in LinkedIn you are running for a position in a video game association. It's
Yes.
called SNGV.
Yes.
Kind of. In Spain, we have something very similar. It's called DEV, Association DEV. So, what's their role in France? What's their relationship with unions, with workers, and why is important while you are candidating yourself?
So the thing is, most video game producing companies are privately run, and it's the case for the Pixel Hunt. Not because I wanted to be a boss, basically, but because I wanted to make reality-inspired games, because I'm a former journalist. And when I looked around, and I came to the conclusion that if I wanted to make those games, I had to make the structure to be able to produce the games, because I would not be able to do it in any other structure. So that makes me a boss. That makes me the head of a company. And of course, I have very little to do with the boss of Ubisoft or the boss of Amplitude or the boss of any other huge studios. But I also have very little to do with other bosses from other companies in France that are the same size as the Pixel Hunt, like 1 to 5 people, depending on the projects, basically. But that would make only purely entertaining games, party games, games that are just for fun. And it's also great that those games exist. But then again, we are all making video games, and we are all, when we talk to the government about video games, it has to mean Assassin's Creed-like video games, but it also has to mean Bury My Love-like video games. And I think that it's important that all the different kinds of creators are represented in those conversations. So the SNGV is a lobbying institution in which almost only bosses or high-ups in the hierarchy of video game companies are applying for the board. And if I want the conversation with the government and the conversation with other cultural institutions and the lobbying to get better funding tools, better tax shelters and tax breaks, better resources for people who want to create a company but don't know how to abide by social laws, for instance. If I want all that to be in a direction that will be great for Ubisoft, but also great for the people like me who want to make video games differently, then I came to the conclusion that I had to apply for a place, a seat at the board in the SNGV. Because if we want video games as a sector to be diverse and creative and to be part art, part industry, part startup nation, part everything you want, we all have to be ready to fight to advocate for the vision we have for video games. Personally, I feel closer to a worker than I feel to a boss, and I am very supportive of workers' unionization in France and also in the world. And I think that in France we have the STJV and the Solidaire Informatique, so two different unions. And I think that we need to work with those unions to come up with better working conditions for workers in all the studios. And this is also something that needs to be advocated for in the SNGV, because it's the SNGV that negotiates with the government then. So for all those reasons, I thought to myself, this is, if you want voices of creators like you to be heard, you have to apply for this, and you have to try to be elected. I'm not super sure I'm going to be elected, but I think that at least being a candidate makes it so that everybody knows that yes, the studios like the Pixelant exist, and yes, it matters to us that workers' rights are respected, and it matters to us that video games are considered as culture and not only entertainment and technology. And so maybe we will help move the lobbying tool in the right direction for us, because if we don't say or do anything, then maybe the lobbying will only be in the direction of making more profit, being more flexible, being able to get rid of those laws that we were mentioning about restricting loot boxes or digital currencies or stuff like that. So we just have to
Definitely. Finger crossed that you
Thank you.
will win. I think it's important that people like you could sit in the board of organization like that. It's not the same coming from a very small organization company like yours, a micro company, or like us, Ars Games, that's not a company from 2,050 people or more. So it's like it's not the only thing for us. It's important, and we always push forward the thinking about the cooperativism as a model, as a working model. We think the video game sector would gain a lot by
Yes.
applying this model, organization model. There is like a corporate culture inside video games culture that drive you automatically to this option to create a company, but not
Yes.
because you are very, very in deep with that value, but just because it's how you do the stuff. Nobody tells you in the school or where you are studying that you have different juridic and legal tools in order to
Yes.
make to have your work done. So it's important to create a culture about cooperativism. In French, there was a company that it was the same company that they create. I can't remember now the
That
game.
sells Motion
Yes,
Twin. Motion
Motion
Twin,
Twins.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And there
And
are,
also Seed by Seed and La Poule Noire. There are a few of those, and I am very
yeah,
in awe of what they achieved. And if I had known at the time I created the
yeah,
Pixelant, I would probably have tried to go that way. I just didn't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
now it's too late.
Yeah. That's the point. We miss the knowledge
Yeah.
when people, young students, came out from the schools, the university, they miss the knowledge about this stuff. So it's not the solution. It's a tool that could
Yes.
be useful in some situation, not always. I mean, it's not an ideological stuff. It's more a matter of be resilient
Mm.
regarding the market, how it works, and cooperatives are more resilient in other sectors. So our hypothesis is that we can use this resilient option from the cooperative sector applied to video game industry, and maybe we can make a strong industry altogether. But let's see what the future will bring us. In order to finish this beautiful conversation, just a last question. So, in a very few words, what do digital right mean when we talk about video games for you?
Mm. Yeah. I think that it means that you are shaped by what you spend time with. And if you play video games, you are shaped by video games. And so you have the right for people to respect the value that video games have brought to you, and the cultural value of it. So to me, I think it's important to just have the right for video games to be considered a valuable addition to what we are as human beings. And as video games are digital, this becomes naturally a digital right.
Thank you so much, Florent. Thank you so
Welcome.
much. It was very exciting to talk to you. Thank you for all your insight and share with us your time.
With pleasure.
I invite you to look back at the original video from Florent. You can comment in October. We will have the third meeting with Michael Sicard. So in the while, you have a great time during this summer, and see you in the autumn. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, bye.
Great. I think it worked a lot. Very